Hello and welcome to another edition of the Stew with JT Brew, Week 2 college football bets with me, JT, and my buddy Ben Dyer. We're going to go over kind of the hits and misses from last week and some of the stuff we like coming up here in Week 2. Stick with us. You're in the Stew.
You up on trades and why you move, you ain't designed to lose. Find you jumping over seemingly nothing, racking up points, makes the game a little more fun to watch. Can drop release, we started with the mock draft and now we making a mockery of the leaderboard. Quite obviously not a scrub, so start an institute, make evaluations like a commissioner do. It's to the point your wife make you watch in a different room. Update your roster and pick and choose when you get some news. Not much that we enjoy more than sipping brew, sifting through new statistics to make it to our end zones through different routes. Universities, institutes, down to homies who click in groups. I introduce you to the Stew with JT Brew.
Welcome back, Benny D, for another edition of Week 2 college football betting. Some ups and downs in Week 1. We're not the type of show that we just forget about our losses and we don't tell you about them. We try to be true and be like, yeah, we blew that one, or, that was a good call. We hit that. We should be looking for the future. A couple ones that really stung me Week 1. I absolutely loved Virginia Tech at Vanderbilt. Yeah. Oh, I got worked. Vanderbilt wins that game in OT. Yeah, Virginia Tech doesn't cover the minus 13. That one was a shocker to me. That one blew a couple parlays out of the water. One of the big ones that stung, though, is I had multiple parlays where I hit every other game. We were on Miami. Miami rolled. We were both on Georgia. Georgia rolled. So we looked good on both of those. I also had Syracuse in a couple bets. The line was 17 and it was all said and done. I got early in the week when it was at 14 and I moved it down to 13. They ended up winning by 16. So they did cover for me on a few of those, but they did have a backdoor late score. So that if you had the 17, you lost that one. I didn't know a lot of these teams were going to cover some of these huge spreads and I kind of stayed away from them. And then they ended up covering. Missouri had a huge game. Illinois ended up having a huge game and covering. The one that killed me, Colorado against North Dakota State. I had Colorado money line. One we hit was a same game parlay. It was Jimmy Horn over receiving yards, Shedeur Sanders over 300 passing yards. It was Travis Hunter over receiving yards, and the money line. That one ended up hitting for about plus 385. So that was a nice hit, though. I did have them at the minus 9 in a couple other bets. So that one did not hit as North Dakota State was able to cover early in the week. That was a Thursday game last week. Great game, by the way. But I was really glad I jumped in last second. Thanks to my friend Toast. He popped that one over to me just before the game. I was like, ooh, I like that same game parlay. Had a little boost on it. That one's nice. How did you hit on the weekends? The USC LSU game on Sunday buried me. I had LSU and the over in that one. We both had talked about it. I was really shocked about the LSU performance. They were not so good. But there's a couple other good ones. Anything that stood out to you, good or bad, from last week?
Oh man, it was one of those weeks. It turned out kind of, I didn't kill it for sure. I was a couple of points away from the Nebraska total. That one hurt me in a parlay because the other two hit, of course, and they kicked a field goal from literally the 1 yard line going in up like 37 points. It's like why not just punch it in? They couldn't get in. They had like 3 shots from the 3 yard line. So, and then of course there's still like 3 minutes to go, and then nobody scores the rest of the game. So that one kind of hurt. Talking bad beats anyway, and then. The ones that I had, that one was, like you said, we were both on Miami. That was good. Sam Houston State was one that I snuck in there on the money line, and they ended up beating Rice. So that was a good one. As a dog, they were an actual dog. And then, I did hop on Notre Dame live at one point because we were both just kind of, wow, this is going to probably be a pretty close game. I think you were leaning Notre Dame. I was kind of leaning A&M, so I just stayed away from it. And then at one point, I'm sitting there watching the game, and I don't know, it just kind of struck me. It was like at Notre Dame's you could just tell they were just a little bit better team, moving the ball a little easier. Riley looked good, the quarterback from Notre Dame. And, he was coming off that injury at the end of last year. So once I saw him kind of start actually run, they were calling run plays for him. I thought, okay, this is probably going Notre Dame's way. So hopped on that. But yeah, there were some killers too. So all in all, I think I was pretty close to even. I think actually was maybe a little bit down about I don't know, however you want to call it with units or whatever. I don't want to get into the actual amounts, but yeah, I don't. I'd have to go back to both of the apps and see what it was. But
I think you're right. I was about the same thing. Yeah, pretty about even weekend down. The one that I had just a monster dog parlay that it was looking really good for a while. I had this one on FanDuel as a 4-leg parlay with a 50% profit boost. I had Miami minus 2.5, UNLV money line as a dog at plus 134, Hawaii plus 441 money line dog against UCLA, and Wyoming plus 253. With the boost, it was plus 9,173. That would have been a banger to get the year started. I looked awesome with Miami smoking. Then UNLV came out and won 27-7. I was thinking, Benny, here we go. This is how we start the year off. He's leading the entire game and gives up a late touchdown. They are leading the entire way. I'm going to actually look it up here when they actually scored that last. They were up 13-10. They kicked a field goal just to start the fourth quarter to tie it, and then kicked another field goal with a minute left to win. Hawaii was up the entire time, had control of that game, got up 10 and was up 13-7, ended up losing 16-13. I thought I was golden. If we would have got on that one, I could have hedged. Yeah. But Wyoming was the one that buried me. Wasn't even close. So after the Hawaii close loss, I didn't feel so bad as Wyoming absolutely got pounded by Arizona State. I thought Wyoming would be a little better. I thought Arizona State would be a little worse.
I think everybody thought Wyoming
Arizona State was a lot better than I thought.
It was
48-7. 48-7. They absolutely smoked them. And Wyoming's quarterback did not play well. No. A bunch of turnovers. And then Sam Levitt, the transfer from Michigan State, the freshman, 258 passing, 2 touchdowns. He looked pretty good. And Wyoming just never got anything going on offense. So that was one of the fun ones I thought I was going to be in the mix on, and just kind of buried me last second as Hawaii dashed those hopes before I got to the Wyoming game. But I was feeling the tingles for a minute.
Arizona Wildcats though.
Arizona Wildcats.
I don't think they covered the numbers, but the prop totals went flying over. I think McMillan had 300 yards receiving. So if you hopped on that over season total receiving yards of 1,000, you're a third of the way there.
I was going to say, you brought that up last week in the show, and I loved it. He was at 1,200 yards last year. He was right at 1,000 this year in the over-under. 10 catches, 304 yards, and 4 tutties right off the bat. Like you said, he's already a third of the way there, one game into the season. I absolutely loved it. We talked about it, how him and quarterback Noah Fafita are like best friends. They went to high school together. Fafita, 422 and 4 touchdowns. Like you said, 300 of those to Tet, and all 4 TDs to Tet. So,
and our Boise State guy went nuts too. 6 touchdowns.
GT over 200 yards, 6 touchdowns. We took him to win the Doak Walker Award.
The defense was rough though, huh?
The San Diego, Boise 56-45. I had them. That was another one I was going to tell you about. I had the minus 13 on the Broncos, and they gave up a backdoor cover with a 2-point conversion at the very end of the game to win by 11. If they didn't give up the 2-point conversion, I would at least pushed on a parlay as I had him at minus 13. I could not believe when I watched him. He scored with 2 minutes left. They were at 56-37. It looked like a golden, this thing's over. And then all of a sudden, a falling down, fumbling catch by Georgia Southern's wideout for 40-yard gain on like 3rd down and 12 to keep the drive alive. They end up scoring on a 1-yard touchdown run, and then they punch in the 2-point conversion to cover, backdoor me, and lose by 11. I was pretty upset about that one, as that one cost me a parlay that I had with Syracuse and Miami going. That was looking already good because it was just waiting on Boise State to cover. So even if they would have pushed, I would have won money. So that one hurt. But Asty Genty, we were on him for the Doak Walker Award, 267 and six freaking touchdowns, 6 touchdowns to start out the year. If their defense is going to be this bad, he should score a lot of points this season.
Yeah, no, I know. And I think Arizona's got a cupcake next week too. It's like Arizona, I don't know. I can't remember, but I know they're playing a school that they should put up another 60 points or so on. So I think, yeah, McMillan's going to be flying over that 1,000-yard total fairly easily. So that there were some good things that happened for us there for the, and then some of our, playoff bets that are going to be lingering out there till the end. I don't know. Oregon didn't look that great. I know I've got
Oregon 24-14 just barely got by Idaho at home. I started watching that game late. I'm like, this is definitely not the Oregon team from last year. I'm like, I understand new quarterback. I understand, maybe a little bit of a slow start, but man, they struggled with Idaho. I mean, Idaho was in that game the whole time, and Idaho is nothing to be writing home about. I mean, they are not really a good team. It's not like there was some upset-oriented team.
And they played Boise.
I've been a little smack in the face for Oregon. They're going to have to start playing if they're going to stick with it in the Big Ten. But yeah, they were a 49.5-point favorite and won 24-14 over at home over Idaho.
Yeah, so that I don't know that Boise Oregon game. That's next week. I think Oregon's favored like 19 or something like that, 19.5 I saw. So I'm kind of tempted to take Oregon, just thinking they're gonna.
Gonna put it together.
Boise's not gonna be able to stop them. At all. So they shouldn't anyway. But
yeah, it's currently sitting at 19.5. Oregon favorite, over under 61.5. Since we're already talking about it, what do you think here, Ben? You're thinking you like Oregon to cover here? I like this. I'm like, man, I was like, me as like if this
just
line goes up,
I feel like
if I could get it to 21,
where they probably didn't try. Obviously they didn't play great. They're gonna have a tough week of practice. I think that everybody's going to be like, "Ooh, we better get it together here," or maybe they're just not as good as people think too. So it could be that, but I don't know. That's kind of what I was thinking initially.
I definitely want to keep some eyes on that. If it gets up to 21, I might take Boise State to cover the 21. If it gets 3 TDs in there, because again, Oregon's defense, I mean, they looked okay, but Idaho doesn't really have much on offense. For it to be 24-14, it's not like Idaho was doing a lot. Boise State's got a much better offense than Idaho, so that's definitely, I think, probably one of the fun games that people are gonna have to think about. That's one of the ones this week that I think could be a pretty interesting matchup. That's for sure.
Oh, and I think I was going to mention too. I think your call on Notre Dame making the playoffs. I mean, after that win against A&M, it's like USC looked good, so they're going to have that game at the end of the year. But I mean, Notre Dame's chances of making that playoff, that was part of your parlay. I'd say that looks really good. I didn't have Miami, but I don't see how Miami doesn't win that conference.
Man, the ACC looked a little rough. I'm not gonna lie. So we were already like, hey, the ACC, like they're probably only gonna get one in. Yeah. Who's it gonna be? Syracuse looked better than they had been. Kyle McCord, for the cast off that everyone made him at Ohio State, looked really good for the Cuse. I have him on a ton of fantasy teams. I'm going to start getting on some overbets. He had 354 passing and 4 touchdowns. He would have had 400. He got a 50-yarder called back at the end of the game for like a random hold behind the play that he had completed down to the 1-yard line, or he would have been over 400 passing for the game. He looked good. Rondo Gatson was back at tight end, missed all year last year. He had a phenomenal game, which is a good thing for Syracuse. 7 for 108 and a touchdown. Again, he had the 50-yarder that he got tackled on the 1, or he would have been over 150 and 2 touches for him too. So I think Syracuse is going to be in the mix, but I just don't think they're on Miami's level. Florida State. Wow. Ooh. Can you say disappointment of the college football season right now? Already lost to Georgia Tech, then come home and look abysmal in a 28-13 loss to Boston College, who was 16.5-point dogs. And and Boston College dominated that game.
Yeah. I think I saw a stat today. It was like they're the first team to be favored by 2 or more touchdowns in their first 2 games and lose them both outright since like 1973 or something crazy like that. And I was just
Wild.
like, "Ooh, that's a rough look for Florida State right there." But yeah, I didn't see that coming. I think maybe Boston College is a little better than. I mean,
I think they're a
they
little
were
better than
fairly
people think. I
impressive.
mean, Clemson got worked by Georgia. I felt like
Yeah,
that 13.5
they
was
hung
way
around for
too
a
much.
little
And then it
while,
got
but
down to 10.5 before kickoff as
yeah,
everyone started jumping on Clemson. I was just like,
you called
I just
that
don't
one.
see them. I was like,
Yeah,
I don't see them competing. Georgia just absolutely shut them down. I think Clemson will compete in the ACC. I just think Georgia's that good. But
yeah,
man, Virginia Tech, I thought would be one of those teams in the mix. They lose
killed
34-27
me.
in OT. That was my pick of the week. I apologize to anyone who followed me on that one.
No, I
Vanderbilt looked
loved it.
way better than I've seen Vanderbilt look in a while, and Virginia Tech was
Yeah,
super disappointing on the defensive side of the ball. The New
yeah,
Mexico transfer, Diego Pavia, coming over from New Mexico State, excuse me, not New Mexico, New Mexico State, coming over to Vanderbilt, throws for 190 and 2 touches, but runs for 104 and a touch to add to it. They grounded and pounded all day. Virginia Tech just really struggled. They've got a nice offense. I like Kyron Drones. I think he's good. I like Bushal Tootin, but man, the Virginia Tech losing that one was a toughie. Stanford hung with TCU. The Duke looked okay in a 26-3 win over Elon. I think they're going to be in trouble. North Carolina should have lost that game to Minnesota. That's another one I was losing as I had the money line on Minnesota at home. They missed a field goal at the buzzer that would have won it.
yeah,
NC State, I like what they've got, but they were a 32.5 point favorite and they only won by 17 against Western Carolina. Wake Forest, I think, is going to be okay. I can't trust them beating North Carolina A&T in the opener.
yeah.
Georgia Tech's going to be in the mix, and then SMU with a nice little win over Nevada, even though they were 28-point favorites. They only won by 5, so that one hurt. So if you're looking at the ACC right now, I don't know how this is just, it's all
Dude,
Miami. The money's going to
Miami
have to
to
be all
me,
over Miami
yeah.
now.
And I know it was the first game. Maybe Florida's a little more down than people thought, but I mean, I watched a good amount of that game, and Miami just they look good, man. They put it on them, and that their quarterback played really well. He can run. I was trying to look him up
Yeah,
here, but
Cam Ward is nice. I got Cam Ward right now as my 3rd rated quarterback in
yeah,
college. Going to the NFL next year, I got Shador Sanders from Colorado 1. I got Carson Beck from Georgia 2, and I actually have Cam Ward as my number 3
yeah,
quarterback out of Miami. A lot of people were kind of ripping me on that, and then after he played that game this last weekend, everybody's like, "Man, this guy's really good." I'm like, "He has been really good. He's just been on terrible teams
yeah,
his
yeah,
entire college career. And now he's actually got some players around him."
yeah. No, they look good. So I mean, that would be one I looked up. You can take Miami to win that conference at plus money still,
Oh,
even after
oh,
beating
I
Florida.
like
Yeah,
that.
I know.
I mean, I think it's Miami, NC State, and Georgia Tech.
That's pretty
If you
much
had said
it.
to me, I think those are the 3 teams that are in the mix there. And I think
Yeah,
Miami, if you could still get them plus money to win the conference after one game. Usually I wouldn't say overreact too much, but I'm definitely
I mean,
overreacting. I think Miami
yeah,
looks a lot better, and I just don't think anyone else looks that great.
yeah, yep, agree. But yeah, I don't know. What do you get? What are you looking at for next week at
Yeah,
this point?
let me pull up a couple other big games here as we're kind of discussing some stuff. I think that Georgia Tech Syracuse games is going to be interesting.
Yep.
Georgia Tech jumping in the top 25 with another win. Syracuse, not spectacular, but they were in handling Ohio most of the game. It's at Syracuse, so it's a Georgia Tech 3-point favorite right now, over under 61.5. I I'm a Syracuse guy, so I've got to,
Yeah.
it's tough for me to be totally, totally even
Syracuse
on that one. But I think
looks pretty
Syracuse is
good.
better than people think. I think that's going to be a battle at
Yeah,
home. I'm taking the points. I'm taking Syracuse at home in the points. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it will be a battle, but I'm going to take them at home in that game against Georgia Tech.
I like that. I think if, being a home game and Georgia Tech, already having played two and getting in the top 25 ranking, they might come in a little bit soft, if you will, and Syracuse sneak up on them maybe. So I definitely like that. See Texas,
I was
Michigan.
gonna say Texas, Michigan's the big one. Number 3 Texas against number 10 Michigan. Michigan got the win over Fresno State. It wasn't real pretty. They ended up winning 30-10. The offense was a little shaky. Donovan Edwards being on the cover of College Football 25 didn't help him. He had a terrible game. They're going to need him to step up. Right now, it's -7.5. Texas at the Big House. Can they win 2 years in a row going into opponents' big game early in the season? They won the game last year against Alabama, which was gigantic. That game basically got them in the 4-team playoff. Being in the SEC this year is you got to get every win. A win against a top 10 Michigan team that's defending national championship would be huge.
Michigan's defense is good.
Michigan's defense is still really
I'm
good.
not sure they're going to be able to hold them off the whole game.
I'm worried their offense can't score with them.
Yeah.
I'm worried that the Michigan offense is not going to be good enough. 7.5 at Michigan seems like a ton, but I'm not real comfortable with Michigan.
No, they lost so much on offense. And Michigan's defense is good, and they can carry them. They can probably hold Texas off for quite a while. It's just whether or not Michigan's going to be able to put up any points and do anything. Man, that's a tough one. It's tough to go in there and win that game, but I do think Texas is a better team. They'd probably come out ahead. Be tough though to cover 7.5. I don't know.
If I'm looking at anything, I'm looking at parlaying that and putting and moving that line down. I want it closer to like 6. If I can, if I'm Texas. It's 7, there's a lot. I feel like Texas is the better team, but man, going into the Big House, I don't care what you do, is a tough place to play. We've seen Michigan absolutely shut teams down there before.
Yeah.
So I could see him shutting them down in a low scoring game and stay in that one. So that one's a tough one. I'm going to really watch the line on that one. I probably am not getting in on that one early. I really want to see what the betting public's going to do before I get crazy on that one.
Yeah. Total's only 43.5. So there you go.
And I think that's the only way Michigan wins and covers is if it's a low scoring game. Yeah. I think if it gets high, I think they get blown out. I just don't think they can score with them. Kind of an interesting game is Oklahoma State, Arkansas. Arkansas, who has been real bad the last couple of years. They came out. I mean, they played Arkansas Pine Bluff, so let's not get too crazy. But they put up 70 points. They did what you want them to do, 7-0. Yeah. This is a team that a lot of people had winning 2 games this year, maybe 3. Oklahoma State, a very impressive 44-20 win against South Dakota State, who many people consider the number 1 team in FBS. So, they're a step down, as far as the competition, but they're a really good school. Them winning by 24, I thought was impressive. Ollie Gordon looked like the champ he was last year, 104 yards, 2 touchdowns. Bowman, which I think is the make or break for Oklahoma State, he threw for 267 and 3 touchdowns. Really, the offense has been awful for Arkansas, but hey, 229 and 2 touchdowns for quarterback Taylon Green. They lost in the transfer portal, Rocket Sanders to South Carolina. Didn't know how they were going to replace him. Jaquindon Jackson, he put up 101 yards on 8 carries, 2 touchdowns, 12 yards a carry. He looked explosive. So this is an interesting one. I'm not totally a believer in Arkansas still. It's 7.5 Oklahoma State at home. I think I'm taking Oklahoma State on that one. Even if I have to buy the half a point and make it -7, I just think this is a game that Oklahoma State wins.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Arkansas, like you said, Pine Bluff. I mean, that's 70 is a lot of points to put up on anybody, but I just don't. That program compared to what Oklahoma State's been over the last 3 or 4 years, they're just not at the same level. I think Oklahoma State's probably, more like a 10-point better team.
I think so too. I think you're going to have to get on it early, don't you? I think if you don't get on this bet pretty quick early in this week, I think it's going to get up to double digits.
It's going to jump up. Yeah, for sure. I like it. I like Oklahoma State.
And I think we've learned a lesson on Ole Miss. 76-0 over Furman. They will not slow it down. They're going to keep scoring. Yeah. I'm definitely going to start taking the over and the total on them all the time. They did not mess around week 1 against Furman. Jackson Dart, He said, I want to be in this Heisman talk. I don't know what you guys talk
Yeah.
about everybody else. 418 yards and 5 TDs in the opener. He was spraying the field. 8 catches, 170 yards, and 2 touchdowns for Trey Harris. He's one of my guys. I've got him on a ton of fantasy leagues. If you haven't played fantasy football, college fantasy yet, Fantrax is the only place to do it. So jump over there and do that. But I'm liking what I saw to Ole Miss. I know it's Furman. I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but 41 and a half point favorites against Middle Tennessee State. 63 and a half is the over-under. I think I'm going to start putting a little more money on Ole Miss here until they play somebody real tough, because I think they're just going to pile up the points.
We missed the boat there because they do tend to do that against bad teams. Like that's kind of what they do. Like you said, if they're playing a bad team, you can look at the line, and if it's under 40, I feel like, against a team against Furman, it's probably something that we passed on that we shouldn't have, because they've proven the last few years that that's what they do to bad teams. So that's one that we probably missed the boat on a little bit.
Another one, until the last couple of years, I felt like I never wanted to take Ohio State early on, because I just felt like they dominated games but never covered. 52-6 over Akron in the opener. Some ups and downs in that game. I mean, 56 is a great win. You'd hate to, complain about that. But QB play, Will Howard was solid. He wasn't spectacular. 17 of 28, 228, 3 touchdowns. He was good, but not great. They didn't have to do much in that game. They were dominating from the front. Now they've got Western Michigan, who lost last week. They're 38 and a half point favorites, over under 54 and a half. Before last week, I'd have said, I don't know about this. I think I'm taking Ohio State. I think I'm laying the points. I think they can win this game by 40.
Yeah, I didn't see or look at what Western Michigan did or last week, but
they lost by 14 to Wisconsin as 24-point dogs. So they did kind of stay in it. I actually am down on Wisconsin. I don't think they're as good as people maybe thought they were going to be. I think Ohio State is ready to prove themselves. They know they've got to score points. They know they got to look good on offense. So I think they're going to keep racking it up.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the only way I bet this one is Ohio State. There's no way. I don't think Western Michigan, especially after playing Wisconsin. Now
covering 2 weeks in a row would be real interesting. Another game, a big one out there between 2 ranked teams, number 14 Tennessee and number 24 North Carolina State. Both teams won last week. Currently, Tennessee's a 7.5 point favorite at NC State with an over under 61.5.
Yeah, I know it was Chattanooga, but man, Tennessee, they looked fast, on offense, and I don't know. I'm kind of leaning towards Tennessee on this one. I'm not sure NC State's going to be able to keep up with them in this one. That's probably where I'd be leaning on this one, is Tennessee. I know it's but you're talking, a team that's they got the quarterback, they got all the skill players. It's going to be, they're going to be flying around the field. I'm just not sure NC State's got the people to hang around with Tennessee this year.
I think this is a show game for NC State. If they can somehow win this game, I think they're like, oh, see, we are a legit team in the ACC. I don't know if I 100% believe it. I like their team. I like a lot of their players. I like Grayson McCall at quarterback. I like Waters at running back. I like this team. Concepcion is phenomenal at wide receiver. This would be a huge win, though. If NC State wins this game, I think it'd be a huge win. It's going to be hard not to take Tennessee, but if the number keeps going up, I could see myself getting talked into NC State. But I kind of want to see where this number lies. Is both these teams, 61.5. I think we could see a lot of offense in this game.
Yep.
I could definitely see this game, both teams being in the 30s. I might lean taking the over in the points in this game. I could easily see this game being like 41-30, 40, 45, 38, 45, 35. I definitely could see that happening.
Yeah, I could see it reaching 70 fairly easily. And this, like you said, it's a big game for NC State. So they're going to be all in on this game. This is probably one of the bigger games they've had at home in a long time. So, and home field in a big game, time and time again in college football, it makes a big difference. So you're going to see NC State's best effort for sure. I'm just not sure that in the end they'll be able to hang in there. But like I said, if it does turn into a shootout, then maybe they can. But 60, I definitely leaning towards that total for sure.
Another game that seemed like it might be kind of a contest before the season started when you looked at the schedule, and then looks a little iffy now, is Oklahoma at home against Houston. Oklahoma piled it on. Jackson Arnold looked phenomenal at quarterback. You understand why they kind of ran off. I still think it's amazing that you basically run off a quarterback who goes to another school, and now he's the Heisman favorite to start the year just because you like your backup quarterback so much better. It's just wild to me. But Jackson Arnold, I think, is really good. They're 29.5-point favorites, over under 49. Houston did not look good last week.
No.
Me and you both liked UNLV.
Yep.
We both jumped on UNLV, and UNLV at Houston 27-7 dominated as 3.5-point dogs. Oklahoma's 29.5-point favorites. I think Oklahoma covers this. I think they absolutely shellac them. Oklahoma 51-3 over Temple, and they could have put up more last week if they wanted to. I think Oklahoma puts it to them. I think I can jump on this now before it gets up over 30.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. This is not the Houston teams from a few years ago at all. This is a completely different program. All of a sudden, they're just not. And I know UNLV has got one of their better teams they've had in quite some time, but they've been historically bad. So I'm with you 100%. Though I just don't think Houston's very good, and I think Oklahoma is going to be able to. They're going to be able to get rolling in this one, I think.
Interesting thing. Are you touching this game? Number 25 Clemson 0-1 at home against Appalachian State. 17.5-point favor of the Tigers, over under 53. Appalachian State, pretty solid team. Got a 28-point win in week 1. I would have never guessed this game was only going to be 17.5. I would have thought this game would have been nervous. Well, yes, I know that I'm still nervous. I thought this game would have been 24 if you would have asked before the season. I'm not sure what the open season line was, but the fact that that bettors like in the books are like,
just the fact that Vegas is landed at 17.5. It's like, ooh, man, that makes me almost want. And App State's dangerous.
App State's not a bad team, man. They're a solid team. They're going to have a shot. They're one of those teams that are going to be in the mix. They can win their division. They could actually make the playoffs. So they're going to come out and want to give this game hard. I have to be honest, man. I know there's a play I should be taking here. I think I have to avoid this game.
Yeah,
because I think I want to take App State, but I think I wish it was in the 20s so I could take them.
Right.
But if they came out and they ended up losing and Clemson looks awesome and they lose by 30, I'd be like, well, that was dumb. I should have seen that coming.
Right.
I do not trust anything in this game. I'm avoiding Clemson for a couple more weeks until I can figure out where they're at. Because last year was the same way. They got off to a terrible start and then they looked good at the end of the year. So I'm avoiding them currently on this one. I just am not touching it.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that one. It's going to be a tough one. What do you think?
Here's a game I don't know if I
can hang in there.
What'd you say?
You think Illinois can hang in with Kansas?
Illinois at home against Kansas. I tell you what, Luke Altmaier looked a lot better. The wide receiver group looked improved. Fegan looked good. A couple Central Illinois kids in the backfield. I'm a little surprised this line is low as it is. Yeah. Kansas is ranked 19th. Illinois at home, but they're only 5.5-point dogs. I thought this game would be double digits. I really did. And I would have been so tempted to take Illinois at like plus 10.5.
Yeah.
5.5 is kind of low. I thought Illinois would for sure be more than a touchdown dog. I feel like they can win this game, but they're going to have to play prime football. Kansas has got a good coach. Devin Neal is a legit running back. Daniels, their quarterback, is good. They beat Lindenwood, which we got to shout out. Your brother Kevin went to Lindenwood, former Lindenwood players, as well as Dustin O'Sullivan and Bubby. A couple of our buddies also played football at Lindenwood. If you don't know what Lindenwood is, it's a small college in St. Louis. A couple of our friends and buddies went there. But I would be remiss if we didn't bring this up. And I was going to bring it up earlier, and I totally blanked. Got to bring it up. Muhammad Seymour High School, our alma mater.
Oh, yeah.
Your nephew just broke every school record in the books this past Friday night. We had a delayed 2-hour delayed game because of weather and lightning. Absolutely. We had a couple guys in the chat jump in here and say, bring it up. And I was like, we're bringing it up. Henry says, how about Muhammad this week? Luke Dyer and Trey Peters leading the country in passing and receiving yards this week. Phenomenal performance. Luke Dyer, Ben's nephew, 593 passing yards and 8 touchdowns this
Burner
last week.
Just give him one more throw.
We're like,
7 yards.
I was like, one direct pass. I was like, just give him one direct pass, get him over 600. And then Peters, I'm blanking on his stats. He had over 300 and had 4 touchdowns or 5 touchdowns, I think it was. He was like one off from a state record receiving yards. Both of them shattered every record at Muhammad. We had to bring it up as all of our buddies played there. Just an unbelievable performance. Your dad was our offensive coordinator in high school. I told Kevin, I remember when we put in the trips and I thought I was going to shit myself.
Yeah.
I was like, we're going to go shotgun trips. Because we ran the I formation, triple option in high school. So when we put in a shotgun trips, I thought, and now we just spread it out wide open. And Luke Dyer, shout out to Luke and to Trey Peters, man. Both those guys should be on recruiting radars after this week. Both those guys are really good. They're highly underrated players right now. I think they're going to go way, way, way up the rankings.
And Morton's not a bad team either. I think Morton's going to end up at the end of the season being a playoff team. So pretty cool. It was a fun night to say the least. So.
Yep, and Kevin, I know he was a proud pop. I had to put him up there. Week 1, leading the nation in passing. We were texting after the game all night. He was jacked. I was like, how can you not be your son having that kind of performance? It was pretty awesome. And then the Sports Addict Network, what's up, fellas? Hey, thanks for joining us again. He jumped in last week, gave us some nice calls, some things to look at. So we did that. But the reason I was thinking about that, Ben, is it was in the comments. I was like, Arizona versus Northern Arizona.
Yeah, that's gonna be.
We're just gonna Ted McMillan overs all year. I think I might.
This one, if they're gonna put a number on it, I mean, I don't know how you can. I feel like if it's anywhere, I mean, I think last week it was only 100 or something like that.
If it's anywhere between 120 and 145, I think it's a smash bet.
Yeah.
I mean, anything over 150, I think it has to be a smash bet on him. I've not seen the lines. The only thing about college, sometimes they don't come out with the individual prop bets until closer to the game time. So we will keep an eye on that. If I do see it, I'll post something on my Twitter page at JT Orange. But that's definitely one of the props that I've got my eye on out there. And I also, part of the reason we brought up Luke and Dyer and Trey, the local guys, as Illinois, as we were talking about Illinois, Caden Fegan and Loveland, Gibson City and Atwood Hammond, 2 local kids starting and playing running back for Illinois, both looked really good in week 1. I like both those players a lot. I think they bring a lot to the table. They're kind of like that's thunder and lightning. Fegan is huge, 6'3", 250. McLaughlin's, closer to your 5'10", 5'11", 205. But both guys played real well. Loveland, a guy around here, a local legend, led Gibson City to a state championship in football before going to Illinois. So just, anytime we can bring up Aiden Lawfrey. Sorry, I was saying his name. Yeah, Aiden Lawfrey, for Gibson, just, he had a real nice game, 10 for 79. Fegan in the opener, he ended up with, trying to see what he had in the opener. He had 16 for 108. And a touchdown. The Illinois offense just looked a lot better. They're going to need to be better because their defense is they're still good. They're just not locked down with a bunch of NFL talent like they've had the last couple of years. What does the line have to be for you to take Illinois here?
Man, I don't know.
If it gets up over a touchdown, I'm going to be tempted. If it gets like 7.5, I'm going to be really tempted to take Illinois. Yeah. I have to be honest. I'm really shocked it's 5.5. I thought this would be a lot higher. It actually
has come down, which is weird. I think it opened at 6.5 and it's come down a point. So I don't know. Some people think Illinois is going to hang around. I don't know. I'm the kind of Illinois fan that I'm sitting here thinking, well, we'll probably beat them, and then.
I'm just taking money line.
Yeah,
I'm taking the money line. Screw it.
Roll with it. But yeah, I think you're right. Though I think you get it over a touchdown, it's going to be almost impossible not to throw a little something there with Illinois. So we'll see. Hopefully, it'll be a close game. It'd be fun. We can get to that Michigan game with a good record.
It would be fantastic. I was trying to kind of pop through here, see if there's a couple other games. There's not a lot of other top 25 matchups coming this week. I was trying to see if there's any ones that kind of popped up. Let me actually pull up here. I'm gonna jump on the old DraftKings site. Let's flip through here, see if there's any games that kind of SMU BYU 10.5. That's kind of an interesting game on Friday night.
Probably
I liked what I've seen out of SMU. They big favorites last week did not cover, even though I took them to cover. BYU plus 10.5. That's not a terrible take there.
Yeah, I feel like SMU is going to play better, though. I think they're a little better than what their score. I think that if that was one where if you looked at the box score, SMU kind of dominated that game but didn't cover. It was one of those deals. So I think SMU is probably a little maybe getting shortchanged on this one. So I would lean SMU, but I really don't know a lot about BYU.
Yeah,
I didn't really pay much attention to what they did last week either. So.
Another game coming up here, Kansas State, 10-point favorite at Tulane. Tulane lost a lot of talent. K-State, I think, is an underrated team. This one should be a tough road game at Tulane, but I do like Kansas State. If they can get this one under 10, you can move it down just a bit. I would maybe lean Kansas State here. I think they're underrated. I like DJ Giddens, their running back. I think this Kansas State team is actually fairly solid.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. I think, that's one of the Big 12 teams that's going to be decent. Yeah, I don't think Tulane, they're nothing to be too scared about. What was one of the other? Your guys, Missouri. I think they've got maybe even an FBS school this week.
Yeah, so Mizzou's playing Buffalo. You know what?
Buffalo.
I usually, I'm a huge Mizzou homer. I was like, there's no way they're covering 49.5. And then they played just the perfect game last week. They looked phenomenal. Came out with a pick 6 early. They ended up kicking a field goal in the fourth quarter to cover and win 51-0. I was sitting there, I was talking to Toast. We were watching the games together. I was like, I'm really glad I didn't bet this game because I would have been sweating that last point and a half out where they kicked the field goal up 48-0, figuring they're just going to run the clock out. They actually kicked the field goal to win 51-0 and cover the 49.5.
Somebody knew what the spread was.
So I was like, that was enough. They're a little less on the spread this week. It's 34.5 against Buffalo. Buffalo last week won 30-13 over Lafayette. This is a game I feel like Missouri should dominate. 34.5's a lot, but if they can play like they did last week, where they just put everything together, Luther Burden looked great. Connor Cook, Brady Cook looked fantastic. The running game, they had 2 new running backs in, and they had Nate Knoll transferring over from Appalachian State, and then they also had Marcus Carroll from Georgia State transferring over. Both of them look solid. Carroll 6 for 35 and a touch. Knoll 11 for 48 and a touch. Even the freshman Keywan Lacey, a guy I'm super excited about, he got playing time. 5 for 42 for him. They just get a little mix of everybody in there. So I like what I saw out of the Tigers. I just am always real nervous. When you get a spread that high, you're going to have a team have to come out and really put together. And they're a team that when they get up, they tend to like to just pound the rock and get out of there. So, but everything worked for them last week. So that was one of the ones that had me leaning there. If it stays under 35, I could see myself putting a little bit on Mizzou.
Yeah. I think Buffalo's kind of a run-heavy team. So if they're getting stuffed up front and they try to start throwing the ball to hang in there, you could see some more pick 6 type stuff happen, and that spread could get covered fairly easily. I think if as long as Missouri can keep them from being able to basically run clock and have long possessions, if they can force them to throw the ball, that could get ugly quick.
What are your thoughts on Rutgers? Rutgers, I think, is much improved this year. Big Ten, they're 22.5 right now, 39.5 over. They get Akron, who's been known to be a pretty good offensive team, but they got worked by Ohio State. But Ohio State, I think, has one of the best defenses in the country. Do we think the Scarlet Knights can cover the 23 here at home against Akron after they just took a whooping from the Buckeyes?
Yeah, they probably could. This is one I'll probably say. I don't trust Rutgers.
I don't trust Rutgers either. I'm the same way as you. I know they're a much improved team. I just remember Rutgers of old being so terrible. It's so hard for me to trust them, especially with these big spreads.
You get a big spread with a team like Rutgers, and it's like I could just see the final score of this game being like 21-7, and then it's like
they dominate the whole way, but a couple turnovers, they don't do a lot, and then they end up just not covering. You're like, what the heck? All they had to do was punch one more in, and they would have had it. A few other ones in here. I like this Memphis team a lot. They're 18.5, which is quite a bit against Troy. Troy lost some people from last year. They've been pretty good in the past. Week 1, Memphis won 40-0 over Northern Alabama. I apologize there. They beat Northern Alabama 40-0. And then I was really surprised. Troy stayed with Nevada, lost 28-26 at home, lost by 2 in that game. I really like Memphis in this game. The 18.5 is pretty high. I would definitely rather have this game at like 16 or 17, to be honest with you. It's one I'm going to consider moving the line a bit and put it in a parlay if I take them.
Yeah, I like Memphis. That I could see them definitely covering that game.
Here's another one. I got to bring them up. They got the hat in the background. The Florida Atlantic Owls really played Michigan State tough. Almost got that win at Michigan State last week. They're at home against Army. Right now, they're a 4-point favorite. Army's coming off a 42-7 win against Lehigh. And like I said, Florida Atlantic, that tough road loss at Michigan State, 16-10. It wasn't great weather conditions. It's kind of an ugly game. Yeah. I could see myself taking Florida Atlantic here. And definitely if that line moves down to 3, I think I'm going to take Florida Atlantic at home.
Yeah, I like Florida Atlantic at home to win this. I watched some of that Michigan State game. Florida Atlantic, like you said, it was kind of an ugly game, bad weather. But Florida Atlantic didn't look, outmatched at all against Michigan State. And I think Michigan State's better than they were last year. So I like Florida Atlantic. Army, obviously, with the total of 42.5, it's not going to be a shootout, but I could see Florida Atlantic for sure.
Iowa, the big in-state rivalry, 2.5-point favorite right now are the Hawkeyes. Over under 35. This was the fun one last year. Decide how low it would go every week with Iowa. They ended up getting the cover in week 1 as Iowa won 40-0 over your Illinois State Redbirds alma mater there. I thought Illinois State might give them a little bit of something, but they gave them nothing. 40-0. Iowa dominated. This game's an interesting one for me. I think this game is going to be real close. Iowa State was not as impressive in week 1 as I thought they would be. They won 21-3 against North Dakota. Back their quarterback, 267, 2 touchdowns. The running game really for ISU was just non-existent. It looked real bad. And that's something that we kind of thought preseason was going to be one of their strengths. They look good throwing the ball through the air. Can they do it against Iowa? This one's a real tough call for me. The 35, you just never know with Iowa with what they do. This feels like a low scoring game to me though. It really kind of seems like this one's got like 17-10, 17-14 written all over it. It's so hard to bet when a game's under 40 though. Take it. It's like Iowa consistently does it.
It's only a field goal, but I don't know. I guess I would lean Iowa here.
I would probably lean Iowa at home here in this game, but it's this one. It's another one that makes me real nervous.
Yeah. Yep.
A few more here we'll go through before we shut things down here tonight. We got Utah Baylor. I liked Utah week 1. I thought Utah was a team that I thought had an outside shot of winning the Big 12 and making the playoff. I took the under last week, hit that one. It was 53. They won 49-0. This one it's at 54.5 with Baylor. Baylor week 1, 45-3 over Tarleton State. I don't know how much we learned from that, as Tarleton State isn't much other than EJ Speed. Colts went there. But I really would like to see this thing under 14.5. I think Utah wins this game. The question is, can they get the spread? And then does this one stay under that 54? Do they get over there? I'm just not. It's so early in the season when these teams play nothing programs in week 1. I just feel like it's so hard to feel like you've got a good idea of what these teams are.
Yeah, it really is a little too early. This will be a game you'll know, after this one. Utah's tough at home. They're going to be a good team, I think. Baylor should give them a game, I guess. 14.
If you wanted a 2-team parlay this and you moved the Utah down to like 13 and moved the over under up and took the under, I might feel a little bit better about that. But I think Utah wins this game. It's just, can they backdoor cover 14.5? I could see it happening pretty easily.
Yeah.
So that one's a tough one. Unless I see a lot of movement one way or the other, I'm probably going to stay off that for one more week and kind of see what I think Utah and Baylor actually are. Auburn minus 13 at home against California. I think Auburn's better than we thought they were going to be. Their team, I think, is going to be pretty solid this year after they've struggled the last couple of years. I like them minus 13 at home against California. I don't think Cal is that good. I think they're gonna struggle. I think Auburn, just the atmosphere, what they bring. I like Jay Knott. They won 31-13 against UC Davis last week. Auburn just absolutely murdered Alabama A&M 73-3. Peyton Thorne, who was not great at Michigan State, the transfer quarterback to Auburn, threw for 322 and 4 touchdowns. They've got a pretty dynamic group of wide receivers there in Auburn. I'm laying the 13 on Auburn here.
Yeah. No, I like that one too. I don't think Cal's very good. That's going to be a tough one for them to hang around in that. I like that one. One other one that stood out. What do you think of? I didn't think South Carolina looked great, obviously, last week, but I don't think Kentucky's that great either. I don't know. I don't know if South Carolina's gonna have like that bounce back and they're gonna put up all the points that everybody before the season thought they were going to be able to do against this Kentucky team. But man, I really thought they would cover last week, and they didn't play well. So
they did not. Yeah, they won 23-19 against Old Dominion. Kentucky won 31-0 over Southern Miss in a game that ended up getting called for lightning. They ended up shorting that game up. You're right. South Carolina has some stud names on that team. There's some guys you're looking at, you're like, man, that guy could be awesome in the NFL. But you know what? They did not look good last week. No. They did not look good at all. I never like to take Kentucky favored by this many points because you're like, it's Kentucky. Minus 10. Yeah, it's tough. I think Kentucky wins this game.
Yeah. I was leaning South Carolina in my head, but I'm like, they just they look so bad last week.
I know, and I could see him covering the 10. I think Kentucky wins this game, but do they have enough to win by double digits?
Yeah.
Yeah, both teams are breaking in a lot of new players. Man, that's when I would have a tough time really feeling confident on a bet in that game. I was trying to see if we're jumping down here the last couple, if there's anyone that kind of jumps out at me that I'm thinking about taking one way or the other. The UTSA Texas State game's a pretty interesting game. I think UTSA looked pretty good. I do like Texas State a lot. They were one of my outside teams to possibly make the playoffs so they can go undefeated and win their conference.
There's Ole Miss, 41.5.
Yep.
We talked about them already.
Yeah. I could see taking Ole Miss there. I think I'm taking Ole Miss. I think they're going to crush. Virginia Tech, I usually would, if they would not done what they did last week, I'd say, 20.5. I'm taking them to beat Marshall by 21 for sure. I'm staying off Virginia Tech until I see something else different. This is a game they definitely should win, but man,
They
I was
should come out
disappointed with
mad
that
after
loss
last
last
week,
week to
but
Vandy.
they might also feel like their season's crushed after last week too. I don't know, because I think Virginia Tech had plans of being in the mix for the conference, and you lose that one. Whew, I don't know. They could still
Yeah,
do it, I guess, but
yeah, they would need a big comeback this week. I think the smart money is probably Virginia Tech 20.5, but
yeah.
man, they burned me last week. It hurts me. I gotta get off them for a week before I can get my trust back in them. Um, Popping through just the last couple games I see here. Alabama minus 31 against South Florida. They're going to put up points. They piled them up last week. I don't think there's any problem taking Alabama minus 31 if you like them that much at home against South Florida. I think I could see that going. Um, Looking at
Tell
some
you,
other ones here.
Nevada's have kind of impressed me. They've played 2 games. They played tough in both of them. 1-point dog at home. I'd be tempted to take Nevada on the money line right there and just roll that.
I was going to say one of the games that me and Toast jumped on, we live bet the San Jose State game and hit on them. They got off to a rough start, came back, looked pretty good. Ended up winning that game in a pretty tough fought game against Sacramento State. They piled up 21 points in the fourth quarter to win 42-24 with kind of a little late run. I tell you what, I always like Air Force, and Air Force is usually how I lean on. They won 21-6 against Merrimack. They did not look very good.
Mm,
They kind of really struggled. I'm usually all over Air Force in these types of bets. I'm laying the points with San Jose State in this game. I think this game is close, and I think San Jose State possibly could win it. I think it's going to be close. I have no problem taking San Jose State at plus 6.5. If it gets to 7, I'm probably definitely taking it.
yeah, no, I like that. And that's one you probably should wait. It probably will get to 7.
Jumping through some of these last ones here. See if anything jumps on. This one is one we didn't talk about, but I really like. I know people are high on Nebraska this year. I
This
just
could be a
don't
good
see it.
game right here.
I think it's going to be a good game. This is an old Big 8 rivalry game
Yep.
at Nebraska. They came into Colorado last year, and Colorado put it to them. I think
Yep.
Nebraska is better than they were last year. I still think people are underrating Colorado. I know I took them last week. I know they didn't cover. You can yell at me for that. They probably should have covered that game. They were in opportunity to do it. They just didn't do it, and they ended up winning.
They got one of the best
Not
players in college football,
yeah.
period.
I mean,
I
Travis.
mean,
If you didn't watch that game, Travis Hunter put on a clinic, man. That some
he's
of the plays that guy
unbelievable.
made was unreal. Jimmy Horn was fantastic. Shadur Sanders was fantastic. Big thing I took away: he only took 1 sack. Last week, he was number 1 in the nation in getting sacked last year. I'm on
That's a good
Colorado
sign.
here.
Yeah,
Plus 7. I'm on Colorado. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a good, fun game. I think this is a 1-score game. So if I'm going to take the 1 score, I'm going to take Colorado to cover the
take the
touchdown.
points. Heck yeah, I'm with you on that one.
We talked about a few of these other ones already. I'm on Oklahoma minus 29 against Houston. A big one there. Clemson, I just can't do it, even though it's 18. I feel like everything tells me I should take Clemson. I just can't do it. The Boise State one we talked about right off the bat. If this game gets up a little higher, I'm going to have a hard time not taking Boise State to stay in this game and cover after Oregon really struggled with Idaho. But like you said, their defense looked terrible. Their defense looked terrible, and the offense was putting up some points for Boise State. Is this game more where you lean and you say, hey, I'm just going to lean on the offenses and say it's going over 61?
Yeah, and I think Oregon is going to be obviously much better defensively in the trenches. So, and Boise State's main weapon is the running game. So it could be a bad matchup for Boise, and I'm still going to be on Boise a lot going forward. I just think Oregon's a tough one for them, especially after Oregon not looking great. I feel like they're going to come out and try to prove a point this week. So I'm leaning Oregon.
Yeah, I like you there. Another kind of interesting one is most people are going to be talking about most this year is Liberty. Liberty, a team people think has a shot to go undefeated. They won week 1, struggled a little bit with Campbell before kind of putting it away and winning 41-24. Struggled a little early on, then kind of put it away. New Mexico State, they got a 23-16 win over Southeast Missouri State. New Mexico State, defensive-minded coach. They're going to play hard, tough-nosed football. Liberty feels like they've got more talent in this game. 22 points is a ton. Oh,
It's a lot.
I want to take Liberty, but at New Mexico State with their coaching, they've got Jerry Kill is the New Mexico State coach, a guy that Midwest people are known for. He was a Southern Illinois coach, the Northern Illinois coach, coached at Minnesota. The guy's just got a ton of years of experience. So he's a guy that really can do well there. That's a tough one for me. I might avoid Liberty there as a 3-touchdown favorite on the road against a team that usually plays some pretty tough defense. Arizona State's a team I probably would have avoided, but now after how they looked at home against Wyoming last week, now at home is a 6.5-point favorite against Mississippi State. What are your feelings on that? I was impressed with Arizona State last week.
I was honestly kind of shocked. I mean, they just straight up dominated that game. It wasn't even a game. I mean,
yeah.
Wisconsin, I knew right away. I was like, Wyoming is not there. They got no shot in this game. And that was one I probably should have tried to hop on Arizona State early because it was pretty obvious what was going to happen in that game. We're going to find out. I don't think Mississippi State, I mean, obviously SEC school, they're always going to be a pretty decent football team. But, man, you got to go out to Arizona State, play at night, and
night game. Yep, it's going to be late in Mississippi by the time that game starts. I think I'm on Arizona State, especially under a touchdown there.
Yep.
I like that. My guys, the Aztecs. Last week they didn't have the toughest team in the world. I watched the game. They played Texas A&M Commerce. They had a new head coach, new starting quarterback, freshman, new players all over the field. But man, Marquez Cooper, transfer from Ball State, tore it up. 27 carries, 223, 2 touchdowns. The freshman Danny O'Neill, actually looked pretty competent. 22 of 33, 214, and 2 touchdowns. Lewis Brown, the transfer from Colorado State, looked good. 3 catches for 91 and a touch. I like San Diego State here covering a home against Oregon. I'm taking the +6 with San Diego State. I just don't believe in Oregon State. Everybody left. They're all on the road. They got a new coaching staff, new everybody. They won 38-15 real handily over Idaho State at home last week. They looked pretty good on the ground. Their quarterback didn't have to do much from the air as they just had that one dominated. I think that's a much closer matchup than people are thinking. I like San Diego State at home +6.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. You're catching 6 at home. Oregon State, they've had a few pretty good teams the last few years, but I like San Diego State. That run game and that offense looked pretty solid.
Well, what about after the impressive USC win over LSU? What are you doing? It's 28.5 at home, the late night 10 o'clock start Central Time, 11 Eastern Time start. Them against Utah
Hawaii
State
this week, huh?
Hawaii should have won last week. The Rainbow Warriors are on bye. Them and the Seminoles, both 2 teams. I thought I had that win at them over +400 at UCLA. I thought that was a win I was going to get. I was disappointed in that one. But no Rainbow Warriors this week on the West Coast game. Man. So we were getting Arizona State USC as our West Coast matchups.
I'll tell you what, USC looked they were impressive, man. And I'd have a hard time betting Utah State and feeling good about it in this game, even though you're getting 28.5. USC looked good, but I guess it could be a little bit of a letdown spot coming off the huge,
getting a team to stay up and keep just pounding it after you just got one of the bigger wins of the week in week 1.
Tough.
It is tough to kind of, but if you want to be a championship team, that's what you got to do. So their offense looks good. We know Lincoln Riley, he'll put points on the board. He's not going to shy away from that. I want to get this one under 28, Ben. I want 27.5. I think they win by 4 touchdowns. I'm nervous at the 28.5. I'm going to get hooked somewhere there. But I do think that's a game they should win. But again, you never know. These are
Yeah,
college kids.
those
You
kids,
do have letdowns.
Yeah, they're probably having a decent time this week in Southern California after that win, so it might be a little slow start for them this week.
I definitely see it. Well, that is going to do it for us here as we're right at the hour mark going over these week 2 games. We'll bring match it. Be sure to check us out on Twitter and X. We'll be posting stuff as we see some of these looks. Like that Ted McMillan line, we're going to keep an eye on all year for over receiving yards for him and some of these other looks as they come out late in the year. You can follow us at JT Orange for me, at Ben Dyer 8 for Ben. Well, but we'll throw some of those out there if we see something as we get a little closer to the time. Week 2. Not a ton of huge matchups. We got a few. Keep the whistle wet, as we get piling in and towards the the meat of the season as we get in some of these conference schedules. But so far, it's been pretty fun the first 2 weeks. Just need to win a little more moolah on some of these games. That's for sure.
He's come out a little better in some of these close ones.
Keep an eye on that. I didn't give you a JT Parlay play of the day today. I'm going to bring that to you later in the week on my Twitter pages. There wasn't a lot I loved right off the bat. I'm going to put one together. I will get that out there for you. So follow me on that. That is going to do it for us here on the Stu with JT Brew College Betting Show. Week 2 on Fantasy and Frames. Stick with us every week, Tuesday nights, 10:30 Eastern, 9:30 Central. We'll be bringing you all our favorite plays of the week as we go over, and hopefully we talk about more wins than losses next week, Benny.
Let's come out ahead this week.
May all your bets hit and the trading never quit. We'll see you next time on the Stew. We're out of here.
You up on trades and why you move, you ain't designed to lose. Find you jumping over seemingly nothing, racking up points, makes the game a little more fun to watch. Can drop release, we started with the mock draft and now we making a mockery of the leaderboard. Quite obviously not a scrub, so started institute, make evaluations like a